My wife said, "I feel nothing for you anymore." I replied, "Is that what you told him?" Then I packed a bag, walked out of the house we built together, and called a divorce lawyer from a quiet spot in the forest. And I just smiled, because she thinks she gets to control the narrative of our failed communication. But she has no idea that my selfishness is about to secure me full custody of our kids. Original post: my wife and I are both 37 years old. We met when we were 19, and for the first part of our 18th-year relationship, life was perfect. We had our first daughter, bought a house, and built a comfortable life. After struggling for years to have a second child, our youngest daughter arrived, and our family felt complete. Don't miss the twist. Subscribe and help us reach 1,000 subscribers. But over the last decade, things have slowly eroded. I recognize my part in it. I drowned in my work, becoming more of a provider than a husband and father. The communication between us died. We never spoke about what was wrong, we just let the silence grow, letting problems fester until they became part of the furniture. We became partners with obligations, not a husband and wife in love. I hate the man I became, selfish, absent, and blind to the red flags that were screaming at me. A couple of months ago, I started having panic attacks. A persistent, gnawing anxiety that I couldn't explain. My gut was telling me something was profoundly wrong. I finally decided to do something about it. I did some deep introspection, writing down everything I was feeling, all my faults and fears. I shared it with my wife, hoping to break down the wall between us, to start a real conversation for the first time in years. She listened. She seemed supportive, but she offered little in return. A couple of weeks later, I tried again, pushing her to open up, to share what was on her mind so we could work on our marriage together. I wanted to fix what I believed I had broken. Then, 10 days ago, it happened. She asked me to talk in our bedroom. She opened up, but it wasn't the conversation I was hoping for. She told me she wasn't being truthful with me. She said she felt nothing for me anymore. No more love, nothing. Just a hollow emptiness. My heart shattered. We talked for hours about how we got to this point. I spoke about the importance of honor and loyalty, about how I would never break my wedding vows to her. After I said that, she was met with a heavy silence, and in that silence, I knew. She finally told me the truth, or what I thought was the truth. 6 years ago, just before our second daughter was born, she had an affair. It was with a man I didn't know, and it lasted for 3 months. She said it was just sex and it ended. I was devastated, completely broken. I couldn't even be angry. I just felt a profound, soul-crushing sadness. I left the house and walked for 5 hours in the woods behind our home, screaming and crying until I was exhausted. When I came back, we talked more. I blamed myself, my emotional distance, my selfishness. I had driven her to this. The affair was 6 years ago. The problem now was the broken marriage we were left with. We decided, maturely and sadly, that the best thing for us and our children was to separate. We would heal ourselves to become better parents, even if it meant living apart. I am moving out this weekend. The pain is immense, but I believe it's the right step toward a healthier future for everyone. Update 1. After our conversation, I moved out. I found a small, furnished apartment in the next town over. The first week was a blur of logistics and a grief so profound it felt like a physical weight. I still blamed myself. I saw her affair not as the cause of our problems, but as a symptom of my failure as a husband. Sophie and I talked every day, coordinating visits with the kids, discussing finances. It was all very civil, very amicable. She was kind and supportive, telling me how proud she was of me for taking this mature step. The following weekend, I went back to the house to pack up my home office. Sophie had taken the girls to her parents' house for the day to give me space. The house was quiet, a museum of the life I had lost. I was boxing up files from our shared desktop computer when I noticed something odd. There was a folder on the hard drive named Projects, but it was password protected. I didn't think much of it, assuming it was old work files of hers. But on a whim, I tried a password. Our anniversary. Access denied. I tried our oldest daughter's birthday. Access denied. Then I tried our youngest daughter's birthday. Access granted. The folder opened. It wasn't full of work projects. It was full of pictures and videos, Hundreds of them, organized into subfolders by month, going back almost 2 years. I clicked on the most recent folder. My blood ran cold. It was a collection of photos of Sophie with another man. Not the man from 6 years ago. A new man. A man I recognized. He was a friend. From her running club. Someone she had brought to our house for a barbecue last summer. I started clicking through the folders, moving backward in time. The photos were intimate. Them kissing, them in bed. Them on a weekend trip to the coast they had told me was a girls' getaway. Then I found the videos. I felt a wave of nausea so intense I had to grip the desk. Her confession hadn't been an act of painful honesty. It had been a strategic maneuver. A limited hangout. She had confessed to an old, dead crime to make me feel guilty, to make me accept the blame for our broken marriage, so I would leave quietly without ever looking for the current crime she was actively committing. My gut feeling, my panic attacks, it wasn't some vague psychological issue. It was my subconscious screaming at me that I was being betrayed in real time. I didn't just sit there. I grabbed an external hard drive from my desk and copied the entire projects folder. Every photo, every video. It took over an hour. An hour of my life spent downloading the evidence of my wife's secret life, the life she was living while I was blaming myself for her unhappiness. When it was done, I deleted the folder from the computer and then emptied the recycle bin. I walked out of that house a different man. The heartbroken, self-blaming husband was gone, replaced by someone cold, focused, and filled with a righteous, glacial fury. The amicable separation was over. The war had just begun. Update 2. First thing Monday morning, I was not at my new apartment, but at the office of the most ruthless divorce attorney in the city. I had found him over the weekend. I walked in, sat down, and without a word, plugged the external hard drive into his computer. I let him see a fraction of what I had found. His expression went from professional sympathy to a kind of grim, predatory focus. Our strategy was simple and devastating. We would let her continue to believe this was an amicable separation based on a long-ago mistake. We filed for divorce that day, but the initial filing was a standard, no-fault petition, just as she would expect. Sophie was served with the papers a few days later. She called me, her voice full of a practiced sadness. She said she knew this was for the best, that she hoped we could remain friends. I played my part, agreeing with her, my voice a perfect imitation of a heartbroken but reasonable man. She and her lawyer, assuming this would be a simple 50-50 split, sent over their initial proposal. They were generous, asking for primary custody, the house, significant child support, and lifelong alimony, citing my emotional neglect as the reason for the marriage's failure. My lawyer's response was a masterwork of legal warfare. It was a counter-proposal that rejected every single one of her demands. Attached to it was a single, password-protected USB drive. The letter instructed her lawyer to open the drive and view the contents before responding. The password was our youngest daughter's birthday. The letter stated our position. I was seeking sole legal and physical custody of our children, citing her ongoing, 2-year affair and her profound moral and ethical failings as a parent. I was seeking the family home and full ownership of all marital assets, as the marriage had been, for the past 2 years, a fraud. We would not be paying alimony. We would be seeking child support from her. The letter concluded with a simple choice. She could accept our terms and walk away with a small, one-time settlement, or we could proceed to discovery, where the entire contents of the hard drive would be submitted as evidence in open court for the judge, our families, and the entire world to see. Her lawyer called mine within the hour. The tone had changed from confident aggression to sheer, unmitigated panic. At the same time, I sent a quiet, simple email to both her parents and my own. The subject line was, "The real reason." The email said, "I know you are all hoping for a peaceful resolution. I was too. But I have recently discovered that Sophie's infidelity was not a one-time mistake 6 years ago. I have attached a single photo for your clarity. Please do not contact me. My lawyer will handle all communication from here." The attached photo was a selfie of her and her lover, kissing, with the headboard of our marital bed clearly visible behind them. I had planted the truth. Her support system of deluded well-wishers was gone. She was now completely and utterly alone with the consequences of her actions. Update 3. The aftermath of my lawyer's letter was total capitulation. Sophie's legal fight was over before it began. She was trapped, with no leverage and no narrative. She was not the wronged wife of a neglectful husband. She was a serial adulterer who had been caught in an undeniable, meticulously documented lie. Her attempts to reach me became frantic. She sent dozens of emails, left long, hysterical voicemails. The apologies were a torrent of self-pity. She had been lost, confused. The affair was a mistake. She loved me. She wanted her family back. I ignored it all. I let my lawyer handle everything. But she was relentless. She started showing up at my apartment, waiting for me when I got home from work. I refused to speak with her. Finally, my lawyer advised me to meet with her one last time, with him present, to finalize the settlement agreement and make it clear that there was no path to reconciliation. We met at his office. The woman who walked in was a ghost. She was pale, thin, and her eyes were empty. She tried to appeal to me directly, ignoring the lawyers. She cried. She begged. She spoke of our history, our children, the life we had built. I let her finish her entire, pathetic performance. Then I looked at her, my face a mask of cold indifference. "Which life are you talking about, Sophie?" I asked, my voice quiet but cutting. "The life you were living with me and our children. Or the life you were living with him. The barbecues, the weekend getaways, the nights in our bed when I was out of town on business. You weren't just living a lie. You were living two entirely separate lives." I leaned forward. "You didn't confess to an old affair to be honest with me. You did it to get me out of the house. You sacrificed a dead soldier to win the war. You thought I would quietly pack my bags, full of guilt for my own failures, and leave you free to move him in. That was the plan, wasn't it?" She just stared at me, tears streaming down her face, unable to deny it. "You are not sorry you cheated," I said, standing up. "You are sorry you got caught. You are sorry your plan failed. Our marriage isn't ending because of a mistake you made 6 years ago. It's ending because of the choices you made yesterday, and the day before that, and for the last 2 years." I signed the settlement papers on my lawyer's desk. "We are done. You will speak to my lawyer about visitation. We have nothing more to say to each other." I walked out of that office, and never looked back, leaving her there with the ruins of the two lives she had tried so desperately to juggle. Final update: it has been 8 months since the divorce was finalized. I was granted sole physical custody of my daughters and ownership of the family home. The evidence was so overwhelming that the judge made the decision quickly. Sophie has supervised visitation every other weekend. She is living in a small, rented apartment, working an entry-level job. Her affair partner, I heard, wanted nothing to do with the mess of a divorce and a custody battle. He ended things with her shortly after she was forced to move out. She had gambled everything on a fantasy, and she was left with nothing. My life is quiet now. It is a new kind of quiet, not the heavy silence of an unhappy marriage, but the peaceful quiet of a home filled with love and honesty. My relationship with my daughters has never been better. Without the constant, low-grade tension of their mother's secret life, our home is a happy place. I am the father I always should have been, present, engaged, and content. I am in therapy, not just for the betrayal, but for my own role in our marital decline. I will not make the same mistakes again. My self-blame is gone, replaced by a clear-eyed understanding of the truth. My emotional distance wasn't the cause of her affair, it was the result of it. My gut had been telling me for years that something was wrong. I just hadn't been brave enough to listen. My revenge was not loud or explosive. It was the quiet, methodical dismantling of a lie. She tried to use my own guilt as a weapon against me, to paint me as the author of our demise. I simply used her own words, her own pictures, her own actions, to show the world who the real author was. The panic attacks have stopped. My gut is quiet. For the first time in a very long time, I am at peace.